Okay. Third video in a row that I'm recording, but I'm getting them done. So this is going to be my dwarfs that I'm growing this year. So I'm going to go through, I've got a big old Ziploc baggie. I don't know what the title of this will be because I'm not quite sure how many is in here. It'll be 50 dwarfs I'm excited about. Oh, I have a little piece of paper. I must have already counted them. It says 72. Maybe it'll be like 75 dwarfs I'm excited to grow. There's a lot of dwarf varieties. Lauren and I are actually going to have one of the original people that created the Dwarf Tomato Project. So we are going to have Craig LaHoulier. He is the writer of the book, Epic Tomatoes. I love that book. And he also wrote a book, what is it, Growing in Hay Bales? I'm not sure if that's the exact name. That's a book I'm reading right now. I did try growing in hay bales a couple years ago. It wasn't all that successful. So I got his book because he's supposed to be the hay bale expert. So he's actually going to be on Tomato Talk Live in April. Yeah, the first Friday in April. So I'm super excited to talk to him, but he is one of the creators of the Dwarf Tomato Project. He has since retired from that. But he and some others created some really great dwarf varieties that they just wanted to have tomato plants that were smaller in size that people could grow like on their decks. And it was just a really cool effort that they started. And there's just so many dwarfs now to pick from. But there's a really cool website. I will put the link to it and maybe show you what it looks like. But it goes through all of the different like categories of tomatoes, of different dwarfs. And so if you want to fall down a rabbit hole, and then there's dwarfs that aren't associated anymore because people are breeding them themselves. They aren't even associated with the Dwarf Tomato Project. But let's get started with these because there's a bunch. All right, so there's some of these that I tried to grow last year unsuccessfully, not very many. I've already hauled this one. This one was in the hunt, my first video that's in this series, but it's a dwarf. I didn't realize it was a dwarf, but it's shamrock, and it's a dwarf. So I put it in this pile because I'm going to try to keep all the dwarves. I think I'm going to plant all the dwarves in like one row, either here or at Materville. Just have one entire row of dwarves. That way they're kind of all together and they're not getting crowded out by the indeterminate, large, huge beefsteak, my giants or whatever. I might do like just an entire giants row in Materville and then a entire dwarfs row and then everything else plant here. I don't know. Gosh, I need more room. I want to grow all the tomatoes all the time. Okay, the next one is Dwarf Barossa Fest. And that was from Bounty Hunter Seeds. This is another one. I'm not sure if I tried to grow this last year. I think I did, but Adelaide Festival. We'll see about that one. Dwarf Sweet Scarlet. A lot of these are trades. Danube or Danube. Orange Pixie. Charbonnier du Berry. Dwarf Stone, Soul Patch. This is one I tried to go last year and I don't think it did very well. I put it up into my greenhouse a little later and I think it was just too hot for it to get going. So I'm going to try to grow it again. Dwarf Delta, Dwarf Walter's Fancy. I'm growing Big Green Dwarf. I'm growing Orion's Belt. Emerald Giant. It's a dwarf. Rainbow Dwarf. King Aramis. And I like when you do a trade. I'm trying to do this myself because I'm bad at when I first started trading, I never even thought to do it. But there's just so many dwarfs. There's so many indeterminates. There's so many micro dwarfs. And now I think they're changing the name to mini dwarf because it's like between 1 foot and 2 foot is like a mini dwarf and not a micro. Micro is like 12 and under. So like, but I'm trying to remember to write on the packaging when I'm like trading seeds if it's a dwarf or if it's a micro dwarf, or if it's variegated, right, like VR on it. Just be a little bit more specific. But like this person here, like they're super specific. I love this. He even says where he got them from. He got them from the MMMM swap from 2021. So I actually entered that swap this year. Haven't gotten it back yet, but I cannot wait. It's supposed to be like an epic seed swap. So I'm excited for it. I got Summer Sunrise. I got Baronia. I got, well, I'm going to grow Dwarf Uluru Okra. Tried to grow this last year. It was not very successful. Firebird Sweet. I got Parfait. Dwarf Grinch. So this is not cherry. I grew the Dwarf Grinch cherry last year. This year I'm growing it's like Saladette Slicer. I think it's more close to a small slicer. So I'm excited about that because I love the Grinch cherry. And I love the Grinch movie. So I'd grow it for just the name. Cherokee Tiger Black. Lemon Ice, another one that I think I tried to grow last year and it wasn't successful. I think it was like right beside the, what was the one I just said? The Soul Patch. Both of those were kind of like, they just didn't do anything in the greenhouse. So I'm not going to put them in the greenhouse this year. Almondine. Brandy Fred. Sleeping Lady. I grew Wild Fred. This one here, I wonder if this is, I know that the story behind Wild Fred is that Craig LaHoulier's dad's name is Wilfred. And I think it just, the name, they were going to name it after his dad, but then it just became Wild Fred instead of Wilfred. I think that's how the story goes. But I wonder if Brandy Fred is a cross between those or something. I'm going to figure it out. I'll put it up on the screen. I got Babylon's Glow because one of you, I believe that this was the one someone said that they wanted to see me grow. So I picked it out of, and these aren't all the dwarfs that I've collected. I do have more in my seed binder, but I tried to, I mean, I did pick a lot, but I tried to say, you can't grow them all this year. You have to have some for next year, right? So Jackass Yellow, Dwarf Devil's Garden, Dwarf Jade Beauty, of course, because it's got my daughter's name, and Dean's Wicked Plum, got an awesome name. I got Maralinga. I got Nemu, which is a variegated dwarf. Tennessee Suited. I tried to grow this last year. It was not the right variety, so I am going to try again with these seeds. So I retraded. Like the seeds that I got, it was a wild looking tomato. It wasn't Tennessee Suited though. It was good, but Dwarf Sweet Satsuma, Dwarf Mahogany. This was the only dwarf that I had in my kitchen. It's in the window behind you. I'm pointing to the window behind you, but Dwarf Mahogany. I had accidentally started these dwarfs thinking they were micro dwarfs, right? That I could grow inside through the winter, and there was like 5 or 6 of them that were not. And I took, I think, 4 or 5 of them to the greenhouse. This is the one that did not make it inside the house. It died before it could go back out into the greenhouse. But I did revive those. I have a video on it. It's pretty awesome. They look like death, and I was able to bring them back to life with banana peel, fertilizer, water, compost tea. I just babied them, and boy, they produced all summer long in my greenhouse. This one is highly recommended by my friend, Dwarf Purple Heartthrob. So Kim Lund, she actually owns this company right off the farm, Heirloom Seeds, and she sent me this as a Christmas gift, so I am totally growing it. I got Dwarf Noah Stripes, Confetti, another one that I think I tried to grow last year and it did not do well. I put a lot of my dwarfs in grow pots. And then the dwarfs were looking really good. They were going strong. And then where I had all of my grow pots planted in my garden, my pumpkin plants were going and taking over them. So I decided to move my grow pots. Not a good idea. And I'll tell you why. Because as we lifted them up, you could hear me tearing and ripping the roots of these dwarfs. They'd already grown like small roots down into the soil underneath. And when I did that, days later, they looked rough and they never did recover. So I will not be moving my pots this year. They're where they're gonna stay. And I will not destroy roots like I did last year. And I think that's why, that and the fact that I didn't water. But when they looked so pathetic, I was just like, you know, I got lazy. I'm gonna be better this year because I really like the other dwarfs are gonna be in a different spot, so it don't even matter. I may do some in pots still. I don't know, we'll see. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm still trying to figure it out. Let's get back into the seeds. Dean Haley's Rainbow. Dwarf Antho Pink Panther. I did grow this last year. It did okay. Wasn't great. I got a few decent sized tomatoes off of it, but I wanted to save more seeds because look at that thing. I just want more seeds of it. Dwarf Awesome. I hope so. Serendipity. Jasmine Yellow. Andy's 40. Metallica. Shadow Boxing. Arctic Rose. Hasselhun. Wild Spud Leaf. Fred's Tie-Dye. I didn't realize this was a dwarf. Gandalf. And it says it's variegated. E-Rose. Antho Stripe Dwarf. Ooh, I already said this one. Nemu variegated, so I just got 2 of those. Bundaberg Rumball. Barrel Beauty. Dean's Mean Little Green. That sounds, what was the name of that? Stewart Desert Pea. Willipina. Sweet Splash Electra. Delta Diver. Vilk Duel. We're getting there, guys. I got one more little handful here. Dainty Isabel. I believe it ripped off of there. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to write that one, but I'm pretty sure it's Dainty Isabel. Elsie's Fancy Dwarf, which is also variegated. I have a whole bunch that aren't dwarfs and are variegated that I think I've added to this box. Oh. Crimson Sockeye. Black Fire. I had someone that made me aware that this one was it was in my the 100 that I was going to grow, the first video of this series, and someone said that one's a dwarf, so I'm adding it to my dwarf pile. So you've already seen that one. And Buddy's Heart. A few more, guys. Aftershock. The Fuzz. I'm guessing that's a fuzzy one. And then the last one is CC McGee. Since recording this video, I have added Dwarf Sarah's Alala Emerald, Variegated Dragon, which is actually a determinate, not a dwarf, Dwarf Electric Pink, and Dwarf Saucy Mary, which makes the total 75 dwarfs. I didn't even tell you what a dwarf is. So a dwarf is basically, I believe it's between 2 and 4 feet. I think that qualifies as a dwarf. There are some dwarfs that get to be, you know, more bushier instead of higher off the ground, less viney. I'm just excited to try them out. And of course, there'll be plenty of tomato tours. I'm going to show you the plants, how they're growing. That's why this year I'm trying to keep them in categories, like places together, so they're not all spread out all over the place, so that I know, oh, this is where my dwarfs are. Oh, this is where my giants are, you know, and then I can do like giant tomato tour or variegated tomato tour or dwarf long keeper tour, you know, things like that. So I can just kind of give you an update on what these are looking like, how the fruits are growing, like multiflora, all, you know, all those things. I've got big plans. I've got big dreams for what this year is going to be, and I'm excited. I'm so excited to share it with you, and I hope that you stick with me and continue watching through this year. I think it's going to be even better than last year. And I've got my seeds starting mixed. I started collecting the bags of the Fox Farm already, so this will be the first year that I grow or I start my seeds in the Fox Farm. This is what Lauren uses, and her tomatoes go like gangbusters once they get going. So I'm gonna go with what the experts recommend. But until the next one, y'all, I hope you enjoy your day.